Hello, and thank you for joining us at this special virtual town hall event where we're joined by Macquarie University Vice Chancellor, Professor Bruce Downton, Vice President of People and Services, Nicole Gower, and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Professor Kevin Jamieson, to discuss and take questions on the university's response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Hello, my name is Rob Gunning, and I'm the university's Director of Communications, and I'm your host for today's meeting. Today we'll start off with an overview from our panel on the university's response to coronavirus with a Q&A section where the panel will take your questions. To accommodate the submission of questions, we are using an alternative system which is different to the one that you've received on your email invite today. You can submit your questions today at any time during the session, so from now on by visiting pollev.com/VCMQ366. And please note the sign that we have here in front of us for that web address. Our aim today is to go through as many questions as possible as we can in the time allowed and to follow up with answers to your questions submitted following this event. So, Vice Chancellor, can we kick the session off with you, please? Would you be able to give us an update as to our current response to COVID-19?
Sure, thanks very much, Rob. I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to join with us today, to having a chance for us to reflect on the work that the coronavirus COVID-19 task force, which I've been chairing for the last several weeks, is up to. I want to assure the community of the university that we are well placed to deal with what is confronting this nation and our own campus with the evolving epidemic of COVID-19. This session is to provide you with an update and to provide you with guidance about how we are responding. The first important thing for us to say is that we are following very closely the advice of Australian Government and New South Wales Government agencies. They are regarded as the authoritative source of information for us, and we are regularly in touch with them, including on most days. We are very fortunate, I believe, to be served well by particularly our New South Wales Health Department and the Commonwealth agencies in guiding us about our response. One of the things that it's worthwhile making a couple of statements about at the outset is the nature of the COVID-19 viral infection. This is a highly transmissible virus, but one that I would urge us to remember more severely affects older folks, those over the age of 65. In young people, it's a comparatively mild illness, and in some even asymptomatic. It is important, therefore, that we have a proportionate response with any emergency or disaster contemplation situation, that we really have a proportionate response to whatever is going on. And that is what our task force has been doing, is establishing the protocols and procedures for the university to respond in a measured, realistic and proportionate way to getting ready for a potential escalation of the epidemic in Australia. Some folks have emailed me and asked me questions such as, will we be closing the university campus? What I would say to that is we'll be following the guidance of New South Wales Health on that front. And at the moment, there is no reason to change business as usual, except for the escalation of aspects of personal hygiene and to reduce the chances of infection entering our community by thinking carefully about how travellers are involved in our community. And we'll have more information on that. We've also taken steps to step up the cleaning of the campus with a particular focus on high traffic areas across the university campus. Again, I want to reassure you that the Critical Incident COVID-19 Task Force is working very actively, many hours a day, on a range of things, including our contingency plans for a very large number of potential events that might happen. Those plans are well in place and they are iterating, as is normal in a circumstance like this, where new information becomes available on a daily basis. The task force has also been paying close attention to communications, and you will have seen a significant step up in communications from me over the last week or so as we get closer to the eventuality that the epidemic does have an impact on our campus. I'd point out that we have had an opportunity to work on several different circumstances during last week, and I'll briefly recap on those for you. We have had a single staff member affected by coronavirus, a member of our staff who was travelling back from an affected country. That staff member acted very responsibly, did not attend campus, had no contact with the members of the university community, self-isolated and sought medical treatment. We also had a set of concerns raised about the Banksia Daycare Centre, where a group of youngsters visited the aged care facility close by to the campus. As you will have seen from my message late last week, we're pleased to let you know that all of those children tested negative for coronavirus, and so that issue has been dealt with. We continue to work hard as a university task force in preparing for all contingencies that might happen as a result of this. I urge you to particularly pay attention to the website accessible from the homepage of the university's web presence as the authoritative site of the most up-to-date information. That website is changing sometimes every day and should be regarded as the single source of information that's important for the entire university community to know. If there's a particular reason that we need to be in touch with members of the university community about their specific role, then those people are contacted through the Critical Incident Task Force and are already working away on their necessary preparations. So, Rob, I believe we're in very good shape as a university to deal with what comes before us in the next weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. And Nicole, perhaps I could ask you to give an overview from a staff, people and services perspective as to where we are.
Thanks, Rob. So I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the safety and well-being of our staff, students and community on campus. And I have to say that's our top priority. The health, safety and welfare of our community is our top priority now and always. Like all universities, we have had a variety of questions and decisions that we've needed to make over recent weeks in relation to COVID-19. And as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, in every one of those questions or decisions, we're following the advice of the Australian Government and New South Wales Health. They're the authority on public health matters at this point in time, and we're working very closely with them. We should also acknowledge that when we talk about health and well-being, there are both physical aspects and also psychological aspects, and I'd like to talk about both of those today. In terms of our physical health and well-being, for staff and students on campus, the advice from New South Wales Health at this point in time is that it's safe to attend campus and that we should continue to operate as normal. We should all follow good hygiene practices, and that includes good hand washing practices. If you are feeling unwell, if you have fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose or other respiratory symptoms, please don't attend campus. Of course, these are symptoms that are common to many viruses and the common cold. So if you do experience those symptoms, that doesn't necessarily mean you have COVID-19, but for the health and well-being for our whole campus generally, we would ask that you do not attend campus. It's best to stay home and recover, and if you need to, seek advice from your GP. In terms of travel, you will have seen that the university has ceased all international travel for staff and students up until the 4th of April 2020, and we'll continue to look at that on a regular basis. This is a precautionary measure due to the rapidly evolving situation of COVID-19 across the globe. With some ports closing and changes at various travel arrangements, we felt that was necessary to maintain the health, safety and well-being of our staff and students. In terms of those of you who might be returning from travel, if you are returning to Australia from travel from one of these significantly affected countries, we would ask you to please check the New South Wales Health website. They have a list of countries that they consider higher risk countries and guidelines about what you should do when you get back to Australia. Those guidelines are being updated regularly, and we would ask that you please check that. In terms of our psychological health and well-being, we all recognise that this is a stressful time. Hearing updates in the media following the evolution and progression of this particular scenario can be stressful. Our goal is to provide regular and clear communication to you, which we have been doing, and to provide a central source of information for you, which is that website. So if ever you have questions or you would like to access any previous communication sent, please go to that website. For staff, if you are stressed or concerned and you would like to have counselling available to you, I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you that we do have free confidential counselling available to all staff through our Employee Assistance Program. Our EAP provider is Benestar, and you can access further information about Benestar, including contact details on our website. For students, if you have queries from students about counselling, Campus Wellbeing is available to all students. And we'll continue to keep monitoring the health, safety and welfare arrangements in place to ensure the safety of all of our campus. There is one group that I would like to speak specifically to today, and that is our casual workforce. I know this is a particularly stressful time for our casual workforce because many of you are worried about what will happen if the university is required to close down. I should reiterate initially, we are continuing to operate as normal and it's business as usual at the moment. But in the unusual circumstance that the university did have to close down its campus for a period of time, we have made arrangements to ensure that there is minimal impact on our casual workforce. We recognise the loyalty and commitment of our casual workforce and that many of you rely on your shifts at the university to meet day-to-day expenses. So in that scenario, if the university was required to close down for a period of time, some of our casuals would be able to continue working from home. And for some of our academic casuals, we may be able to organise and change timing of tutorials or other teaching commitments outside of the close down period. Of course, that will depend on what kind of casual work you are doing. And for some of our casual staff, it won't be possible to work from home, and it won't be possible to change teaching arrangements, for example. So for example, casuals that might be working in retail outlets, who might be on a cashier's desk, who might be in a frontline reception role. For those staff, if the university does need to close down for a period of time, the university has taken the decision that it will continue to pay casual staff for their rostered shifts for a period of up to 2 weeks in the case of a close down. At that point in time, we would review the situation and it may be necessary to make some changes to our rostering arrangements. I think those are the main issues that I wanted to talk about today in terms of the safety and wellbeing of staff, students and our community on campus. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks very much, Nicole. And Kevin, clearly a busy time for you and your staff over the last couple of weeks, but perhaps you could provide us with an update as to where we are.
Absolutely. So perhaps I can start by reinforcing a message provided by the Vice Chancellor and by Nicole, which is this is primarily about the safety and welfare of our staff and students. That's the centrepiece of the work we're doing at the moment, and that's the linchpin around which we've built all our responses. What we're also keen to do here is to focus on business continuity. How do we maintain the operations of the university as much as we possibly can in an unknown environment? Now, at the moment, to reinforce the message that the Vice Chancellor provided, it is business as usual. You know, there are some particular circumstances. Perhaps people are unwell. Perhaps people have conditions that require extra vigilance. But teaching is taking place, learning is taking place. We are operating the university as normal, and we will continue to do that until we receive advice otherwise from health authorities. We are very much guided by the advice of authorities who are much more on top of this, much more involved in the details of this event than we can be. So I want to stress that this is currently business as usual. Having said that, we are obviously aware that there are scenarios that may not be the case, and we need to plan for those. It isn't one scenario, it's many scenarios. The way this can unfold is that there are many ways this can unfold. It can be impact for short periods, for long periods. The impact might be soon, it might be later. And each of those scenarios unfolds in different ways. What we're currently doing, and this work is taking place, fantastic work is taking place in the departments, in faculties, with my colleagues in the central DVCA portfolio, is to make sure we understand those events and understand our arrangements to maintain our courses during those circumstances. It's important for our students. I mean, our students come here to learn, to do their courses, and they come here to complete and to move on with their lives. What we want to do as much as we possibly can is maintain that continuity so that students can continue with their courses and come out ideally unimpacted by this. There'll be some impact in a detailed sense, but certainly in completing their courses, we would like to think that we can get as close as we possibly can to an ongoing experience. We've already had to deal with this once recently with the travel bans for students who have been in China who couldn't arrive to join us. Fantastic work was done across the university to provide a mechanism for as many students as possible to keep moving forward as fast as they possibly can, or as close to normal speed as they possibly can. The good news about that is we have good experience now. We've done that work and we have good experience about how to deal with this. We have good experience around the delivery of learning. We have good experience around assessment. We understand the implications for units and for courses and for speed of progression through courses. We understand what activities are inherently face-to-face and are problematical, which ones can be delivered online. We understand that the implications for the overall course, not just unit level. We understand implications for accreditation. There's lots of stuff that we have a very good grip on right now. So what's going to happen from here is work that's taking place through Dominic Parrish, our PVC Learning and Teaching, and other colleagues, working always with the faculties to provide tools, provide approaches to the situation as it unfolds. And I stress that as it unfolds because this is going to be a highly dynamic approach to dealing with the situation as it presents itself, day by day, week by week. I want to stress that one thing we've learned recently is the fantastic capability and work done across the whole institution. The way the institution came together to deliver a program of work for students in China was brilliant. It was just an astonishingly powerful and piece of work. A lot of people should take a huge amount of pride and credit in that work being done. So I'm very confident that we have that capability. I mean, we're a big university. We have roughly 1,800 units in flight at the moment, so there's a lot of units. 500 of those roughly are already online or have online versions. So we know that there's a lot of units where we have some coverage, but there's a lot more work to do. As I say, I'm very confident that the people involved in the units and courses, they know their units, they know their courses, they know what's possible. Our job is to make sure that they're supported and they have tools and techniques to make sure that they can keep their courses moving where it's appropriate. So I'm happy to deal with this more in the Q&A session, but maybe I'll leave it there, Rob, for the time being.
Thank you very much, Kevin. We've got a number of questions that have already come in. Please continue to submit questions. We're going to cover as much as we can. And again, to reiterate, we will answer all these questions following this meeting. So, Vice Chancellor, perhaps I'll start off with a question for you. We're asked, what exactly is the lowest possible trigger to shut down a temporary shutdown for the university?
Sure, and again, what I would re-emphasise there is we will be guided by New South Wales Health, who have a case management approach towards making those decisions. They showed us that very amply last week with the Banksia daycare facility issue. They were in touch with us very quickly throughout the evening. They were on site at the aged care centre nearby. We were regularly in touch with them to case by case manage a decision around what should happen for individuals in potential very close contacts of those individuals and the wider university community. So we will be relying upon the guidance from New South Wales Health when that time comes as to what the threshold would be for a partial or complete close down of the university.
Okay, thank you. And Nicole, we have a question come through for you. You've talked a little bit about staff and arrangements, but we have a specific question in relation to casual staff. So what arrangements are we making for casual staff employed on a sessional basis or entitled to sick leave and under increased pressure to come and deliver on campus? Perhaps you could talk to us about the arrangements for that.
So look, certainly what we've been trying to do to date is to minimise the impact for our casual workforce and ensure that we can continue to offer all of our teaching programs across the university at the moment. And I think we've done a good job of being able to do that. And in terms of any situations where if a casual staff member feels unwell or is not able to to teach on a particular day, they should talk to their unit convener and make appropriate arrangements for how that could be covered. We have had those situations and we have been dealing with those. And we've also been trying to ensure that there's no negative impact for casual staff in terms of the opportunities that are available for work during this time.
Thank you. Kevin, a question for you that's come through in relation to graduation. So, will the graduation ceremonies be called off? And with the current travel ban, should students be making preparations to attend their graduation in April?
I think the advice about graduations is as other things we've said today, which is at the moment they're on. There's no change to those graduations right now. We understand there are scenarios that may unfold that may not be the case. So we're going to, we just behave proportionately and respond proportionally as it unfolds. So there's no change right now, but there's an awareness, I think, both from our side and the side of people who will be attending, that this needs to be monitored and watched.
We also should note there that the majority of our graduands who come to graduations are already in Australia. They're either domestic students or international students who are still in Australia. So the travel issue really is a minor component of thinking about whether graduations would go forward or not. The other thing I note is this morning there was a press conference by Commonwealth officials encouraging us to continue on with events as planned, that there is no indication to start cancelling events en bloc at this stage.
Thank you. Nicole, I might go to you for another question. So we've had a question through, are there any plans being put in place for working at home arrangements? And if we got these symptoms and we decide that we need to isolate, will we be able to work from home? And is that decision made at the discretion of the line manager?
Good question. So there's probably a few questions in there. So let me start with, first of all, if you're not well and if you should be at home, first of all, don't feel obliged to work from home. If you are sick, we do have sick leave provisions available, sometimes called personal leave available. And I think that's really important. If you're not well, please do take the time to attend to your own health, see the doctor if you need to, take time to recover. So I wouldn't advocate people working from home if they are unwell. That's what sick leave is there for. If we do need to use working from home arrangements, and there could be a range of circumstances where that might be needed, for example, if there was a close down of schools and people were at home to look after their children, if the university was required to close down for a period of time, we have very well established working from home arrangements. Those occur at the moment for a range of folks and are normally negotiated with a person's manager, and those arrangements are well established and we can use those if we need to.
It's important for me to say just a couple of other words about what closed down actually means, so staff are well informed about what closed down might actually mean. This does not mean that we lock the campus up and everyone leaves. That is not what happens in a shutdown. The goal of a shutdown of a university campus is to decrease the potential for rapid spread of the infection by large groups of people convening in the one place. So if we were asked to close the university campus in quotation marks by the authorities, there would be a range of staff that would be required to still come to campus in order to ensure that aspects of the university's work and security can continue on. There would be folks from the facilities group. Maintaining the integrity of the information systems of the university is very important, independent of whether there is a large physical presence, as would usually be on the campus. We have to be able to maintain call centres for our students. We have to have the communications function, the media function still working. Human resources, including managing payroll, that's very important. So one shouldn't get the idea that a shutdown of the university campus means that everything comes to an absolute standstill. That is not the case at all, and we are well prepared for these contingencies, whichever of them might arise.
Thank you. Kevin, perhaps I could ask you the next question. We've had, I believe, a question through from probably one of our frontline staff who's interacting with students. And they would like to know, will we be making masks or additional sanitised products available for those that are interacting with students from a frontline capacity?
Again, the response is acting under advice. The answer is no. And let me unpack that. That doesn't reflect any lack of care. It's more following the advice from health authorities. The quite specific advice from health authorities is that the normal consumer-grade masks are not effective. We've had very, very clear advice on that. They can have some benefit if one actually has a cold, for example. There's some benefit in outward transmission. There is not a benefit in terms of inward transmission. I might defer to the Vice Chancellor in terms of a deeper medical knowledge, but certainly the grade of mask one would need to have to provide genuine protection against any viral infection is way above that. They require professional fitting, professional understanding how to use them. And quite frankly, again, the advice is they're a distraction of resources from the people who are the frontline medical healthcare workers who need those stuff. So there is no plan to provide masks. Let me be quite clear about that. On the issue of sanitisers and general hygiene, the sanitisers have been spread far and wide across campus. They are available in many, many places right now. We certainly encourage their use, but I think the advice is more general than that. It is just maintaining a regimes of keeping one's hands washed, being very conscious, not touching face, not putting hands to face, and maintaining those general routines. I think that's more important right now.
Thank you. And Vice Chancellor, I know you mentioned in one of your communications earlier this week the increase in cleaning that we've been doing, but we've had a question through that mentions essential supplies, and we've seen obviously panic buying occurring in some supermarkets. How is the university placed in relation to provisions for hygiene products?
It's a good question. Part of our work already has to be in touch with our supply chains and to, as far as we can, ensure that they are all in place. If we think, for argument's sake, we're seeing panic buying on some products, we're seeing a shortage in the community of alcohol-based hand sanitizer, for argument's sake. I have to remind folks, good old-fashioned hand washing with warm water and hand soap for 20 to 30 seconds is just as an effective a way to deal with personal hygiene. So I think we are well placed as a university with our supply chains to not be in a place of concern there.
Okay, and maybe I'll follow up with the question. We've had an additional question come through in relation to the travel ban. So clearly you issued some guidance earlier in the week around that. The question asks, how long do you predict that this will continue to go on? Or what about any courses or units that involve travelling overseas, such as study tours to China or India, for example?
At the moment, we've set the outbound travel ban to April 4th. That was set with a 4-week lead time, 10 days or so back. And that was done to give us time to see how the trajectory of the evolving epidemic coming towards Australia would escalate. It will be revisited on a week-by-week basis, so very shortly we will be reissuing a further extension of that travel ban, and that will be happening on a weekly basis. And that is out of respect for the reality of not saying cancel travel that's 2 to 3 months out at this stage, but to provide a realistic way for us to be able to get people back on the road as soon as we can, but also having respect for the need to stay in tune with how the epidemic starts to evolve if it takes greater hold in Australia.
Thank you. Kevin, perhaps I'll move to you next. We have a question that's come through in relation to the delivery of courses. So the person wants to know if they are delivering a face-to-face course that's feasible to deliver online, i.e. in a web format. Should they be working on that as a contingency?
I think that's a very helpful way to think, and I think there'll be some communications from my portfolio around those things. I think the people who are best placed to understand what online delivery looks like are absolutely in the departments, the unit conveners, the course directors, the departments, and the faculties more broadly. So I'd encourage people to be thinking in terms of those contingency plans, what it means to take units and courses online. With the number of units we have, it certainly won't be a central group who are converting the units to an online delivery mode. That can't possibly be true with 1,800 units in flight at the moment. What we can do though is provide tools for colleagues. We can provide techniques. We can provide training. We can provide advice. We can provide support for this work. And again, I reinforce what I said before. The experience from taking about 150 units online a few weeks ago for the benefit of our Chinese students who couldn't arrive, or students who couldn't arrive here when some travel bans were imposed previously, was that colleagues who are up for the work. I mean, our experience was that fantastic work got done in departments, in the courses, straight away. And our job was to help to coordinate, to provide the resources. I know our colleagues can do that work brilliantly.
Perhaps you could elaborate that on a little bit, Kevin. We've had a question that's come through that's asked around some of the specifics that we've done to support continuation for study for students in China. I know there's been an exhaustive amount of work. Perhaps you could mention some of that more in detail.
So it's the responses will be the same, but I think there are some useful indications in that work. For example, let me start with this point. Our opening position was students shouldn't suffer in terms of quality. We still want anything we do online to be at quality. This isn't just the minimum version that is okay. It should still be a high quality experience. And that can be a decision point sometimes between which courses can go online, which courses can't go online. So having taken that view, we then turned to the resources, or turned to the what was being delivered, and said, how can we now deliver that online? So, for example, we've on a 2-week by 2-week basis, we're going to lectures right now. We're going to the echo recordings, stripping those, creating files, and turning those into files that are accessible in China. Now, as I say, that's in respect of the Chinese travel bans. It won't look quite the same in this situation, but I think the context will be the same. We'll look for high quality. We'll look for not taking courses online for the rest of the session. We're looking to do it in short blocks so we can keep unfolding this, unpacking this as we go along. We'll take each pedagogy, each mode of delivery differently. We'll look at lectures, we'll look at seminars, tutorials, look at every mode of delivery and say what's the appropriate response in that area, and give perhaps departments some tools to think about how those activities can be taken online. A very important thing that's taken up a lot of our time is thinking about what does assessment look like in this environment. Again, I said before that we don't know exactly what a shutdown looks like over an extended period. It might come and go before assessment takes place, it might not. So we need contingency plans around what assessment might look like. And that work's going on in my portfolio right now to make sure we do have some ways of providing assessment for the units when we get to the end of session.
And part of what's also very important to note here is that in our community, as Kevin has said, has shown great capability at being flexible and adaptable. So obviously if there is a campus shutdown, the reality of practical lab classes or clinical placements on campus, for argument's sake, those would not be able to happen. So what we'd be looking for there, I believe, Kevin, is to work with our colleagues in the relevant departments about how they might adjust and move forward some of the lectures perhaps that could be done online, so when the campus reopens, those things that really do require a campus presence could be emphasised. If they can't, then we'd be asking the departments to look at a flexible adjustment of how a assessment will work for that particular unit.
That's right. So, it's already, we are thinking about, as you say, Vice Chancellor, fallbacks, contingency plans around the recovery stage. Because at some point this will end, and it will end, and we'll need then to bring students back onto sequence in their courses. We're looking at things like how we might use an intensive block mode between sessions, for example, how we might use the Newark term dates as a block of time to deliver units, how we might offer richer offerings in session 2, how we can use session 3. We have lots of options, and as this unfolds, as it peaks, and as it tails off, we'll then go into the mode of saying, how do we bring our students back onto their sequences?
Thank you. Nicole, I might stick with the theme of campus closing. It's formulating many of the questions that are coming in, but I have some specific questions now for staff. So I had some series of questions through. Maybe I'll let you answer them in sequence. The first one is around staff working from home. So will all staff have to work from home, or just essential staff? Will that be required? Would you like to?
Yeah, sure.
Comment on?
And look, I have to say, in terms of the precise arrangements, much of this will depend on the duration of the close down and the nature of the close down. So as the Vice Chancellor said, it's not an all or nothing. There may be a variety of circumstances, and we have been planning for a range of different scenarios. So I think that's important to say up front. There's no one size fits all in terms of what a campus close down could look like. What we've been looking at is what are the variety of arrangements that might be appropriate in those circumstances. If we are continuing to operate during that period of time, we would be looking at things like who are essential to be on campus to ensure that business continuity can happen. That will be an important part of planning for a close down. A lot of staff may be able to work from home, but that won't be the case for everybody. And so we have been ensuring that our IT systems are ready in terms of facilitating working from home arrangements. That's an important component of us being ready for any scenario like that. And then thinking through what the possible leave arrangements might be for those who may not be required on campus, who may not be able to work from home, and who nonetheless may be unable to work during that period of time. So I think essentially we've been looking at all the possible scenarios, planning for all of them. You know, if this, then what? Without wanting to go into all of the variables, I suppose to give some reassurance that we have planned for multiple scenarios, and in that planning we're very conscious of the impact on staff and on students and all members of our community.
And maybe just follow up with one of the questions there, which is in relation to staff continue to be paid if campus does close, and if we are asking staff to stay away from campus, will this be normal paid time, sick leave, personal leave?
Yes.
Can you give some guidance on that as well, please?
Yeah, and I think it really depends on the particular individual circumstances. So we do have a range of generous leave entitlements available. If you are sick, the appropriate kind of leave to take is personal leave or sick leave. If you are looking after somebody who might be unwell, or if schools close, then carers leave would be the appropriate kind of leave to take in those circumstances. If you're working from home, you're treated as continuing to work during that time, and so you don't need to apply for leave under those arrangements. And if in the unusual circumstance that we did have a close down and people weren't able to work from home, we would ensure that there's appropriate leave arrangements in place to ensure that people continue to be paid during that time. Just to reiterate, for casual staff, I mentioned earlier, we have been looking at contingencies there. And again, the focus there is how can we ensure that casuals continue to have a reliable source of income. That might be allowing casuals to work from home. It might be reorganising tutorial times or teaching times so that casuals can fulfil that block session, perhaps at a different period of time. And for those where it's not suitable, we will continue to pay rostered shifts for up to 2 weeks. If the close down is longer than 2 weeks, we would need to review the situation. Our goal really is to provide that level of assurance for staff in a range of different circumstances.
Thank you. Vice Chancellor, perhaps I could come to you next. So we've had a question through in relation to events and people wanting guidance in relation to planning for large groups for events we may run this month or in April. Where are we with events at the moment?
Well, if it's a large event, I presume it's already been planned and the work is well underway to deliver that event. Current indications are that events should go ahead, but please do bear in mind that this is an evolving circumstance. Things change each day, each week, and that the most important thing we can do, as Nicole said earlier very powerfully, is think about the health and well-being of our staff, our students, and the community we live in. So we will act responsibly. If there is a call from government that we should start to consider not having large gatherings of events, then we will of course begin that process of potentially closing down large events. But at the moment, the advice we've received, to which we are adhering, is that we will continue to hold large events. Please bear in mind we do need folks to be flexible here and to give thought to making wise judgments about how to keep business continuity in progress at the same time as paying really close attention to those things which can mitigate or lessen any chance of an escalation of an outbreak in our community here. That's the personal hygiene aspects. It's not coming to work if you are taken ill. Remembering again that this is the time of the year when there are lots of respiratory illnesses in the community. The vast majority of them will not be COVID-19, since the majority of cases in Australia still have arisen as a result of inbound travellers returning to Australia or close contacts with those folks. There is not evidence of general community-to-community transmission at the moment. So personal hand hygiene, staying away from work, being careful if you have to sneeze, not sneezing in the open elbow and so on, or into tissue, discarding that tissue. That's really basic aspects of personal hygiene. But for the moment, events can go forwards.
And just to follow up on one of your points there, Vice Chancellor, the sensible advice you've been given, but we've had a question through in relation to if staff are opting not to come to work for fear reasons. Clearly there's a lot of hype around the situation at the moment, but
Sure.
say something about the general fear factor.
Again, we understand very much that there is an anxiety level about COVID-19 widespread in our community and in the news media particularly. Again, I would urge a proportionate thinking about this. If we stop and think for a moment about the influenza outbreak that's happening in the United States, for argument's sake, for the last few months, there have been more than 10,000 people die from influenza in the last 3 to 4 months. That has received almost no media attention at all. So everything has to be put in proportion. So we understand that folks are feeling, some of you are feeling anxious about coming to work. Nicole has detailed how you could receive support from our EAP. If you are concerned and you want to consult with your supervisor or manager, that's a very wise thing to do. And we will make appropriate judgments along the way about leave that might come up in that circumstance. But for the moment, it's business as usual for the university with a heightened awareness to the acts that each of us can do to take responsibility for lessening the chance that respiratory illnesses of any type are transmitted within the university community.
And Kevin, perhaps I'll switch to you now in relation to the answer the Vice Chancellor just gave. One of our questionnaires is asking, stating the fact that we're about to hit exam week so shortly. And what do we do about students who are opting not to come in due to fear with regards to assessment, increased requests for special consideration, MRP impacts, etc.? Could you address that one for me, please?
Sure. So, I mean, at a high level, it's not okay not to come in. So that's the first thing to say. This is business as usual. The courses are running, so that's our primary advice. If a particular student has a particular issue they want us to look at, there is a normal channel for special consideration to give that some thought. And obviously, we would try to engage in the details of that and see if we can't find a solution for that student. There's no question at all. We do and would do that as a matter of course. But that's our normal procedure, and that is the procedure right now. There's no sense at all we're encouraging students not to come in. That isn't okay. We want students to come in unless they're displaying symptoms, unless they of cold or flu, for example, unless they've recently travelled, unless they've been in contact with someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19. We'd like them to engage in their courses in the usual way.
And there are a small number of our students or staff for that matter, who have a particular predisposition because of an underlying medical or health circumstance that predisposes them to be perhaps affected or more severely affected if they happen to contract the COVID-19 virus. In those circumstances, of course, we work with those individuals through the routine pathways, through the special consideration pathway for students, and through dialogue with supervisors on the staff side.
And so clearly some of these symptoms are top of mind for some of the questions we're receiving in here. So Nicole, in relation to flu vaccine for this year, will there be a flu vaccine this year for staff, and do you know when it commences?
So we have for the past 3 years offered free flu vaccines for staff in partnership with MQ Health, and that's had a huge take-up. Each year more and more staff decide to receive that vaccine. So we intend to do the same this year. We are planning that there might be increased interest in those, and we work with the medical advice on what is the ideal period of time for that vaccine to be issued, because you want to have immunity during the flu season. So we'll continue to work with our medical advisors on the ideal timing. We normally do that over a period of weeks to give staff the option of having the flu shot over a period of several weeks, acknowledging that people might be away on annual leave and the like, and the plans are to do that again this year.
Great, thank you. Vice Chancellor, so we have a question that states the university's made it clear that we're in close contact with the New South Wales Health in relation to COVID-19. I know you've been personally as well. But the questionnaire asks, is there a scenario, is the university willing to make decisions above and beyond the advice of New South Wales Health in order to protect the university community?
We certainly are, and we would always be prepared to do that. But we do have to accept that the most authoritative advice, backed up by a range of experts from the infectious diseases world, from the epidemiologic expertise, from public health experts, is channeled through New South Wales Health. I have been, because I've been speaking with the Chief Health Officer for New South Wales and taking part in regular teleconferences sometimes every day. I am very impressed by the quality of coordination between the federal government and the New South Wales government. And we do have to act responsibly on these fronts. We have to take the advice we receive, of course make our own judgments about that. But in no circumstance that I've seen so far in this, as a medical person, have I seen any advice that I would not 100% agree with. And it is the bureaucracy that we're paying attention to. There have been instances where politicians have stepped in and given advice that might have been contrary to the experts in their DO departments. We regard as authoritative the advice we receive from New South Wales Health. And of course, if a circumstance came up where we had a concern about their advice, we would discuss that with them and of course make our own decision, but that has not eventuated or come anywhere close to it in this particular epidemic.
And Vice Chancellor, so clearly this has taken a lot of people's time in preparation for this already, but we've had a question through just questioning whether we actually have adequate resources in place to work our way through these scenarios and situations. Are you comfortable with the resources that we have in place at the moment to respond to this?
I am very comfortable. We have in place long-term an emergency management plan for the university. What has gone on in recent weeks is adapting that plan for the particularities about this particular viral epidemic. The first phase of our work in this regard was to deal with the issue of students who could not return to us from China to be on campus. A few weeks ago, as it became clear that the epidemic was not going to be contained in China, but was going to spread to other parts of the world, we moved very quickly a few weeks ago from that stage, phase one of planning, to phase two, which was about our preparedness phase for dealing with a range of eventualities if the epidemic were to escalate in Australia. For some of those areas, we are still working on preparedness. For many of them, we are in standby mode, where we are ready to move with great speed if we're required to move very quickly. And of course, we're already giving, as Kevin indicated earlier, thoughts to what a recovery or stand down phase and a return to a more normal operating environment would be. So I'm very comfortable that we have the right teams in place. We've covered a whole raft of issues, some unforeseen. The childcare issue last week was an unforeseen set of questions got raised for that. Again, that was all handled with great speed. The answers were clear after the children were tested within 12 hours. I was called by the Chief Health Officer to give me the results of that. We had specific communications out in the hands of the families of children in the daycare centre. So we are moving in an orderly way on all of these fronts. And right now, we're in phase two, and we are, for some areas, are working still on preparedness as the range of potential scenarios becomes clearer. And for some areas, we're already in standby mode. I'm very confident we're in a good place.
Thank you. And Kevin, maybe I'll go to you next. So, I mean, clearly this is a global phenomenon, and we've already been working with impacted students overseas for some time. But we have a question that's come through asking what advice or support you would give to those Chinese students who are currently affected by the travel ban and undertaking online study at the moment, but cannot arrive at campus by 30 March, as we've stated in some of our communications. What would you say to that?
Well, my first response is we miss you. You know, we want them to be here. We miss them. I think it's none of us control these kind of events. It's a once in a generation thing, literally what we're seeing right now. But there are a lot of people who are being impacted, and I think students who are willing and ready to come to Australia, either to start courses or to continue their courses, who can't come. I think that's a very, that's a very, very sad situation to be in. I feel for those students. I feel at a personal level for that situation as a parent of children that kind of age. We miss them. We want them to be here. We've done the very, very best we can. There were different responses we could have provided, and we provided what we think was the best response we could have provided. It's just less than 2,000 students, but we got down to the level of individual study planning to make sure that we could give each student the best way through. So my advice to them, or my response to them, would be engage in your learning. Keep engaging the units that you're doing right now, the online versions. We will work with you to get you back onto track as soon as we possibly can, in the best possible way that we can, and we can't wait to have you here with us.
And part of our contingency planning is to formally prepare for the arrival of those students when the travel ban is lifted. All sorts of planning is already underway for that reality. Those students will get to be able to return to campus, and we want them back. We miss them. We will welcome them back to campus. So we're thinking about things like how do we run an orientation for that cohort of students, which is a substantial lot that will appear within a short amount of time after the travel ban is lifted. So that's a very good example, Rob, of an area where the contingency planning is really playing out in an orderly way.
Okay. I might switch back to travel for a moment now. And clearly we've issued some guidance around international travel, but we have a number of questions coming through in relation to domestic travel as well, and whether it's likely that will be cancelled, and field work or field trips that we've got arranged for both research and L&T. Can you talk to that, please?
At this stage, our travel bans are around international travel only. For outbound travel, we have asked the departments and colleagues to consider carefully any visits to campus from offshore guests, and there's an approval process in place for any exceptions to that. We have not restricted domestic travel at all. Might I emphasise here, though, that again, one of the things if people are travelling domestically is just be extra vigilant towards personal hygiene, hand washing, as before going on to and after coming off aircraft, being in hotels, being in conference centres. Just be extra vigilant about keeping away from anyone who looks particularly ill with a respiratory illness. And taking personal responsibility. If you are unwell yourself, do not travel. Do not get on a plane. And so those are the kinds of things that I don't foresee a time at this stage in the near future where we would be concerned about domestic travel. I think field work is a particular example. It depends on what sort of field work are we talking about. There is a big difference in the sort of field work that might involve sending a group of, for argument's sake, science students on a geology field trip where they would have no contact in the field except with their own group, as opposed to a group of business students who might be going into a very dense environment in downtown Sydney. I'm not saying we should be considering cancelling either. What I'm urging is thoughtful preparedness and attention to personal hygiene, and particularly awareness about not being near folks who are sick, and paying attention to our own responsibility if we are ill to not be at work or in class, and to be responsible for the community at large.
Thank you. And we have talked a little bit in relation to provisions, cleaning provisions, but we've maybe just talk a little bit now about cleaning enhancements that we've made. And we've had a question that's come through in relation to some businesses which are now requiring cleaning of high traffic areas every 2 hours. So could you talk a little bit about what we're doing from a cleaning perspective?
We have doubled our cleaning regimes starting last week, with a particular focus upon high traffic areas of the types mentioned, food service areas, large lecture halls, bathrooms. Those are the areas where we really have increased our cleaning regime, and that will stay in place until further notice.
We've had an interesting question through here just in relation to restrictions potentially for public transport and coming onto campus and so forth. Could you speculate on how we think the guidance may go for public transport use, for example, into the future?
There's no indication at the moment that the state government has any advice for folks around use of public transportation. It's an efficient, effective way to get around Sydney. Again, the personal hygiene questions come up there, just be careful in terms of avoiding folks who appear to have respiratory illnesses. Hand hygiene, particularly after being on buses, trains, is an important.
And just to add, the only thing I'd add there, Rob, is as we plan for multiple scenarios, one of the scenarios we have contemplated is if there were challenges getting to and from campus, and that could be because of public transport restrictions or for other reasons. So we have thought about the question, but certainly not anticipating. We haven't heard anything to that extent at this stage.
Okay. I may just follow up. We're having some questions in relation to some of the casual stuff, I think probably through your comments there. Just a question here in relation to, can we please let us know what we would advise in relation to casual teaching staff and what to do in this period for precautionary measures? Should casual teaching staff be advised not to teach if they exhibit symptoms of COVID-19, such as a runny nose?
I think that fits into your previous comments, Nicole. I think.
Look, I think that the same provisions around health, safety and well-being apply to all of our staff. If you're not well, if you are exhibiting those symptoms, then we would encourage you not to come to campus, to take the time to rest and recover, to seek medical advice if appropriate. I think for all of our staff, those same precautionary measures for health, safety and well-being should apply.
Okay, thank you. I might just switch to a question now on our IT infrastructure. So clearly this is not just an impact on resources and our staff, but our IT business as well. Are there any extra IT planning that we're undertaking to facilitate working from home?
It's a good question, Rob, and certainly part of our contingency planning already, which is where we're in standby mode, is to have assessed our IT systems in terms of an uptick of potential use from outside the university's own on-campus network, to have looked at and secured the licensing arrangements and have all of those in place. If particular software has a site-restricted license in terms of geography, we also have assessed and have a bank of laptops available to deploy in a prioritised way across the university for folks who may be asked to work from home but don't have suitable technology to use of their own. So those are the sorts of things that are a very good example of where contingency planning has led to a good result.
Thank you. A couple of questions here, perhaps I can answer. So how often is the MQ webpage being updated? Clearly we're updating that daily with advice as it comes. How about running a streaming event like this for students? You'll be pleased to know we are about to run a streaming event
In 1 hour's time.
For students as well. Nicole, perhaps I could switch to you. So during the shutdown, if it does happen, would there be a complimentary leave available for students, for staff? Sorry, I think this is talking in relation to a special type of leave for COVID-19. Can you talk to that as well?
Yeah, look, and I guess I'd go back to my earlier comments here. There's a range of different circumstances that might apply. Some of our existing leave arrangements may cover the scenarios. Some people might be able to work from home. In some circumstances, special leave might be appropriate. It really will depend on the circumstances. So we have planned for those multiple scenarios. We are thinking about it. It really will depend on the nature and duration of that close down, if it does happen.
Okay, I believe we're coming towards the end of our session now, so I may just sum up. Firstly, to reiterate that we have a long list of questions in front of us that we've done our best to get through. We will collate answers to these questions again moving forward. Can I speak for myself, but I'm sure on behalf of everybody who's in attendance, thank you Vice Chancellor Nicole and Kevin for the event today. We continue to work and have a sole focus on this. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with staff. Thanks very much.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.